Hey everyone, I managed to chase off Alex Navarro to the Bay Area. He's got family or something out there, I don't know, something that he doesn't want to be with me on Monday. So I had to look for love in different places, and thankfully, newly independent game critic Jim Sterling decided he was willing to entertain me.
Hello.
Thanks for coming on the show, Jim.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure, never a chore.
I think start off. Congratulations is in order. You have recently taken a big old risk. And it seems to, well, I
Yeah.
don't know. I want to say it's going well, but I guess you could tell me if it's a disaster.
It's going disastrously well. It's going better than I expected, which is making me. It's real butt clenching time. I was hoping, of course, for to earn a decent crust, continue to do what I do, and directly serve my audience rather than worry about having to serve anyone else. Didn't expect it to go that well that fast. Trying not to fall into the same pitfalls of anyone who does this kind of thing and becomes too successful too fast. I say too successful, that fast, that well. Trying not to go crazy and suddenly, I can buy a $10,000 camera now and go into crazy. So I'm trying to keep things in check, in perspective, and understand, of course, that this could go up or down, and just be damn grateful and relieved that so far it seems to be working okay.
So let's back up from there. So in the past, up until very recently, you've been kind of doing what we've been, in similar lines of work, jumping from different enthusiast outlet to different enthusiast outlet. And then you were primarily Destructoid, and then started doing a bunch of freelance and like working for the Escapists, and then starting your stuff on the side. But then recently, you decided to kind of pull everything and go it on your own, raise money on Patreon, which people, if they're interested, is just patreon.com/Jim Sterling.
Jimquisition.
Jimquisition. So how did we get to this point? Because it is a big leap to kind of put faith in yourself and the audience, and to say, even if these paychecks I've been getting elsewhere have not been as much as I think I deserve, it's still nice to get them, and they're guaranteed.
Yeah. Well, part of it is when I really think about it. The risks associated with Patreon, now that it's up and running and I kind of have a view of how many people are initially willing to contribute to the product, I guess, that I'm hawking on the internet, really it feels less risky now. The initial thing was the hugest gamble I've ever taken, but now that I've seen that it initially worked, it feels like less of a risk, because here, clearly, a couple of thousand people have contributed to the process of making Jimquisition and everything, and they're not all going to suddenly go at once, And I expect the Patreon thing to go up and down, up and down.
Yeah, sure.
It's unreliable, the amount, but then again, I mean, Jimquisition was ad supported and therefore based on views, so that was up and down. Not to mention, if people start pulling support for the show, it's something I'm going to clearly see coming. I'm not going to wake up one day and suddenly I'm at 0 patrons. Whereas I could wake up one day and the Escapist's been sold again to someone and they told everyone to get out, or Destructoid finally sold and they told everyone to get out, or there's no money. I mean, it's always a risk. I mean, as far as I know, the Escapist and Destructoid both doing fine right now, but it is a huge risk just to be a game blog, be an enthusiast site right now, as we've all seen the layoffs at various big companies, and to me, now that I really think about it, that feels riskier. Being in a job where you could wake up one day and suddenly it's not there anymore, whereas here I've had a good audience for almost 8 years now. That feels more real to me. That feels more reliable, more of a solid foundation than anything else. So yeah, I mean, it's still a nerve-wracking thing. Clearly, I have a lot of people that I'm now directly working to keep serving the product to them. But yeah, as scary as it is, when I really sit back and logically, sensibly thinking about it. Obviously, rational thought and emotional thought are two totally different things.
Right.
So as I say all this, in about an hour's time, I'll probably be shitting myself again. But logically, it feels, if not safer, at least a bit more trustworthy.
Well, it's interesting. I have to imagine for you the scariest part is that initial moment when you kind of click launch, because you and I have a decent number of Twitter followers, and we have people that comment on our stuff. Like, there's a sense that when you say things, when you publish things, like, you get feedback and you get a sense of there are people that value what I have to say, but someone clicking or following on Twitter is something entirely different than saying, I would like you to support what I'm doing, my livelihood, by giving me a little bit of what you earn in your hardworking daily life. Like, please allow me to do what I do. Actually translating that to, backing it up with money. That's the part that I think would scare the shit out of me. Is just maybe people like what I do, but not enough to say we'd like to support you doing it.
Yeah, I've had people tell me over the years, you should go and strike out independently. You should go do your own thing. Maybe look into crowdfunding. I've even said a few times, I'd never want to do something like Kickstarter because it terrifies me. It's scary enough signing an agreement with a website to promise them a certain video a week and everything, and that's it. Too much responsibility for me already. This is a whole different ballgame, but it really did get to the point where it's like, it's now or never. I mean, let's find out. And this is the guy that won't even do a panel at PAX or somewhere on his own because he's terrified like 2 people will show up and they'll hate him. I really don't have. I don't want to say it in a way that sounds insulting to my audience, because obviously they've always been there and I've always felt their support, and that's always been wonderful. But there's always, again, it's the logical and illogical thought processes.
I think lots of folks in this business have that exact.
Yeah, that's
the imposter syndrome, where you just feel like, I feel like I do a good job at what I do, but someday they're all going to figure out I'm terrible at it, and then they're all going to figure out my ruse.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. And on the Friday night when I hit the click thing, I did have what was probably my first full-scale panic attack. I've got the same kinds of neuroses and anxieties that I think a lot of people in this who do public creative things have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people with all sorts of anxiety issues and whatnot. But I've never been the panic attack kind of guy. It's always been more of a muted, consistent fear of everything. But that was my full-on, like, it was half an hour after I clicked live on it that I suddenly told myself I never want to write about video games again.
This is it. I went too far. This is too far.
Yeah, like, you've done it this time, Sterling. And then over the course of the weekend, like, it took until Monday, until I actually got the first independent Jimquisition up, and then it was like, okay, I'm working again now, producing the work. I put up, I want to say about 4, maybe 5 reviews this past week. Getting the work out there and finally delivering the content that people are kind of, I guess, they've got a totally optional, customizable subscription to, is the way I like to put it. And now that I'm finally putting that content in their hands, and this week, Thursday, fingers crossed, we'll have the podcast set up as well. So yeah, I feel a lot better now that I'm working. But that weekend was terrifying.
And you gave yourself a weekend too. It's just like an entire, just 48 hours just to stew, where you don't have anything except, well, I guess maybe I should refresh that page again. It's been 5 minutes, right? That's a reasonable amount of time to refresh this page again.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like an ungrateful asshole because I had people messaging me, friends and family and former co-workers as well, who've all been really supportive, congratulating me and saying, you must be celebrating right now, you must be dancing on the roof, and I'm like, no, this is horrible. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I felt like this real dick, because I was just too scared to celebrate. And the more successful it got, the more scared I became.
Oh no, I've unleashed this monster. I can't put it back in. Now it's far too late.
Yeah, and that was coupled with there were some comments online about people who said I didn't deserve this, and how I was called at one point morally reprehensible for setting up.
Just like the rest of us, Jim. Just
Yeah,
join the club.
yeah. So there was that going on, which kind of added a bit of stress. But Monday rolled around. I got up. I finished editing the Inquisition last minute. Some people thought I was on Xanax. I just recorded first thing at 7 in the morning, and because I was waiting to get some more ducks in a row. So it was very seat of your pants. But once that got live and people were reacting really positively to it, I saw the NeoGAF thread on the first Inquisition that went up, and they were thrilled that they could view it on an iPad now and see it in full HD at 60 frames per second, which, as I said at the time, is more than can be said for a lot of AAA console games. Once that was up and people were pleased with it, I feel a lot better. Now I'm allowing myself some celebration, tempered celebration, because this is the worst time to get cocky.
I think what's kind of amazing about it, and we're sort of seeing this in all sorts of these various new forms of funding, whatever, whether it's crowdfunding a Kickstarter for game projects, or for you to go independent on Patreon. It's this sense that traditionally we've thought you have to get tens or hundreds of thousands of views or clicks or whatever to generate a small amount of money. Like, it's just very difficult to make money through these indirect means, and on crowdfunding, or in regards to Kickstarter or what you're doing, you have a very small amount of people that are supporting a number that seems big when you say it, but the amount of people who are getting you there isn't a lot. But relative to how, in the traditional model of, if you were trying to make $10,000 a month just doing game reviews or doing Gymquisitions and trying to make that off of ads, like, you wouldn't get anywhere near there. You would have to do things very differently to even consider hitting something like that. And yet you build a base, they respond, and they sort of give you in kind what they think you're owed, but it comes from a much smaller pool of people, which is kind of amazing, and I think a really good trend.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen this when Destructoid trialed the Destructoid Huge membership program, which works in a similar way to the Giant Bomb subscription stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The Escapist has the Publishers Club, and we've seen outlets go for that kind of thing with varying levels of success. I think Giant Bomb's been one of the most successful publications to try it.
And we're also, I think part of the reason people respond to it is because they can tie themselves to a personality. Like, they know what they're getting into. Like, if it's just a publication offering, more behind a paywall, that means less to people these days, given that people are gravitating towards people that they like. And so they're responding to you, so they want to back you. Giant Bomb is a personality site, so it's like they're responding to us, as opposed to just, they're not really, like, we could rename the site and they would buy the subscription. Like, Giant Bomb doesn't mean anything to anyone, really. Like, maybe it summarizes an ethos or a personality, but, it's, if we swapped out 6 or 7 different people, everyone might go away.
It's definitely the people, and it's something I've been telling. Every now and then you get people asking how to make it, how to survive, and whatnot, writing about video games for a living. And one thing I always tell them is, do not put your publication before yourself, because I've seen fantastic writers who wrote for a publication. They were company people. They had their name in a byline, but that was about it. They just produced the solid content, and it got credited to the site. Then they got laid off, and they couldn't get a job for love nor money because no one knew who they were. They were talented, but they never put their personality out there, and they didn't get that support from the people. And it is crucial, more so now than ever. A faceless publication is really not going to be as future-proofed as something like Giant Bomb, where the people and the audience like the people giving them the content. That definitely helps, and obviously I've been incredibly fortunate over the years to have really carved a good personality and a good audience, and kind of built a little community of my own, doing the various podcasts and videos and stuff over the years. And you're right, it becomes a smaller amount of people giving you the sustainable income, but it's so much more valuable, and we've seen that with subscriptions. I think I forget what the exact figure Nero told me at Destructoid at one point, but it was like, one subscription is going to be worth, at least 10 people just clicking on an ad. The ad-supported model has never really been in favor of anyone but the ad networks at the end of the day. And that is a system that I've become increasingly displeased with. And I'm really glad that, at least in some cases, we're starting to see that it doesn't have to be the only model.
Yeah, I mean, the ad model is, it's what we know. It's proven. It may not be a great system, but it's a system, and in a world, in a collapsing media environment in which there are just very few options to support a lot of people, the ad-supported stuff is what people have doubled down on. But I think we've increasingly seen, and it's probably always been the case, that ad-supported stuff does not generate better content. It tends to generate worse content because you have to then craft the content around what's going to encourage eyeballs to the ads. And I think a lot of people try to do their best within that and do some great work, given that's kind of the compromise they're in. But I don't think it can be argued that the ad model results in better stuff for readers or happier content creators. I think it hurts everyone.
Absolutely. I mean, two of the other people who are using Patreon, who have served as a kind of inspiration for my own stuff, would be Cara Ellison and Matt Lees, both of whom do very offbeat reporting. Cara Ellison is possibly my favorite writer writing Matt games at the moment. The stuff she covers is just so different, and she's got just this awesome sense of humor in what she does. And she's the kind of person who will go to a preview event along with everyone else, but come back with a preview talking about nothing but goats or just
exactly.
And she uses Patreon to help keep that afloat because there might not be a huge amount of advertising money in that. And Matt Lees especially said he was sick of this idea that a video was worthless if it didn't have 100,000 views. And he wanted to create content that wouldn't get 100,000 views, but would nonetheless serve a very distinct audience, an audience that would be so into that kind of content that they'd be willing to help contribute to keep that content going, which is a fantastic idea. I mean, it makes me think of something like the BBC in the UK, which, a series of television and radio stations and whatnot that produce content without ads. It's kind of there can be arguments as to whether it should be government mandated or not. But,
sure.
But it's certainly a similar model. It's more compulsory, but it's a similar model, and it allows them to, when they're not having tennis on two channels at the same time and pushing Red Dwarf back like they did in the 90s. It allows them to do more interesting television, the kind of documentaries and news exposés that people say they want, but don't actually watch in droves. Don't actually watch in the numbers that are suggested they would. So yeah, seeing that come to the web and seeing people embrace it, and again, not everyone does well with it, which it would be awesome if everyone did, but those that have turned it into something successful, it's great to see, and I really am supportive of anybody who gets out of the old ways, gets out of the old system, because it's not a system that generally rewards the talented, I don't think.
No, and it's led to kind of interesting situations like like a BuzzFeed, a site that gets I think rightfully so a pretty bad rap, but at the same time, essentially what BuzzFeed is trying to do, and if you followed what they've been doing on a slightly deeper level for like the last 18 months, is they've gotten exceptionally good at writing these listicles, things that people will click on that are explicitly made for sharing, and they get around, and that stuff makes a lot of money for them. But then they also do like really serious critical reporting and politics and culture, and that stuff doesn't do nearly as well, but it gives value to BuzzFeed in terms of what it's giving back to sort of the community writ large, and the listicle stuff supports that. It doesn't exist without the listicles, and so they created a model in which they kind of hurt their own reputation as they're trying to save their reputation, because that's the monster they've created, and that's the business model that works for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's indicative of so much web entertainment. whether it's enthusiast games blogging or videos or whatever, there seems to be so much compromising, so much Faustian bargaining that you have to do, and BuzzFeed, I think, is a great example of that kind of Faustian pact, where it's like, we have to do this horrible shit to get this good shit out. And it really is sad that it had to be that way, but that's what happens. I mean, we see this in every form of entertainment, in every form of business. The people with less than honest intentions get in first, set up the system, set up the environment, codify how it should be, and then by the time the creative people are absorbed into that system, they've been led to believe that's how it's always been, that's how it always should be, this is the way it's done, so let's just all march in lockstep.
Yeah, and I think that's what's been amazing about the last couple of years is, crowdfunding kind of came in, no one really knows what it means, and then it takes time for it to either make sense for different individuals or people to feel the confidence that, okay, I'm gonna take that risk. And I think what's great is, like, it's worked out for you, and then, or at least, so far so good, knock on wood, but hopefully it encourages other people to say, look, you know what, I've spent a lot of years building up this thing, because I think what ends up happening is people get really tired of the system and then they leave. Like, games writing doesn't do a very good job of supporting people financially as they're getting older. The grind of being able to stay in that system ends up spitting people out. It's why we lose so many people to game development, because if you want to own a house or have kids and things like that, games writing is, there are very few jobs that are going to support you in your pursuit of that, and the couple of people that have those jobs that pay enough are not going to give them up. And
I mean, I was lucky enough to earn a decent wage. I have a mortgage and I can support a family, and have been doing for a few years. But at the same time, I had to have 3 relatively successful video series to do it, as well as a full-time reviews editor job and other work on the side. Like, those people that get into those good jobs are certainly incredibly lucky to do so, but also have to work an incredible amount. You've got to produce so much to keep it sustainable, and it can kill people. I mean, and as well as that, I mean, just some of the shit people have to put up with online from, working online can be not the most pleasant of environments all of the time, and I think so many people do get burned out as a result of working more, going above the call of duty in terms of work, then dealing with stuff 24/7, all kinds of insults, abuse, and all that kind of stuff. And I said to, I think it was Gavin Dunn, I said, Miracle of Sound, this past couple of weeks ago, I said, if I get to leave this industry on my own terms without feeling burned out, pushed out, kicked out, or whatever, I'd consider that the most successful thing I've ever done in my career, to actually think, I've had enough and I'm happy, and now I will walk away, rather than feel, beleaguered and just say, I've got to get out. Being able to choose to get out is this kind of amazing luxury and this ideal. Not that I'm looking to get out. It's just if it came to that point when it was time to retire, if I feel like I could retire one day, hopefully not for a long time, because you don't see that with people. They either disappear off the face of the earth or they get a better job.
Yeah, and then they usually leave, with middle fingers flipped up, saying, fuck this, and I've had enough of this job, and they move on, and that's frustrating. That's too bad, and that cycle has continued for a long time, and obviously there are precious few individuals that aren't able to do something like you're doing, but it at least proves that it's possible, and that any new avenues for people to support themselves, especially outside the traditional system, is a good sign, because there just haven't been, 2 years ago that didn't exist at all, and now 2 years later it does. So even if it only applies to a small amount of people, the fact that it even exists, I think, is a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely, and I like to think, I certainly hope that the joy can spread there. My friend Conrad, who I work with on the Fistchart Marketing podcast, he's a bit of a stat junkie, and he was looking. I try not to look at the actual donation The actual patrons, myself individually, unless they contact me directly or leave a comment, because I don't want to sit there knowing who's given money and stuff.
It's just one guy who gave $9,500, and it's just you really got to do what he says.
So I don't really look at that side of things myself, but he was looking, and he said that over 50% of the people who were contributing are brand new to Patreon. This is the first thing they've kicked money to. So I've brought in quite a few people, and on the few pages I did look at when he told me that, and I was a bit curious, I've seen that Jimquisition is the first thing they've given money to, and then they've gone on to do other things, as they've donated to me, and then thought, well, that was easy, what else is there? And I went through this with Kickstarter. I contributed stuff to like the funny enough, I don't do many game ones, but I did the Skeleton Warriors reboot toy series they were doing, and then felt the benefits of that and enjoyed doing that, and then went and looked at other stuff. The Eric Scarecrow Miami Hotline figure being the latest one I did, and it becomes this kind of joyful experience to see these new projects and give money to them once you've done it the first time. So my hope is that people will see me producing the content. I've been working extra hard this past week to really get stuff up, to see people getting what they are subscribing to, and then hopefully that will encourage them to look at other people who are already on there and might go on there in future. And I've seen that happen a bit, and hopefully that, and break down a bit of the stigma as well. There are a few people that have accused me of now being on hipster welfare for being on there, when it's kind of, it's more like you're just selling a product and people set their own price. And hopefully as people see that and see the work that people put into it, again, some of that stigma will go away, because I do think it's a ridiculous stigma, and the worst thing you should be doing is trying to discourage people from breaking out of the old system. I think that really shows you how in the thrall of old archaic systems people get when they look at anything that bucks that trend as less than noble. We saw this with YouTubers when the content ID stuff really kicked in at the beginning of this year. People saying, oh, they should get a real job anyway. And it's like, well, respectfully, fuck you. Because really all you're doing is buying into this idea that the 9-to-5 job is the only decent job out there, which is exactly what a bunch of dinosaurs upstairs kind of want you to think. It's like you are being the perfect little consumer right there for them, if you don't want to encourage new ways of trying to make a living. So I try never to do that, and I hope that, seeing the success of YouTubers, seeing the success of Kickstarters, seeing the success of people on Patreon can help remove some of that frankly ridiculous stigma.
Yeah, it's almost, it's why sometimes when I've had discussions about this with people, like I flinch at the term YouTubers, because I feel I understand why that term exists. It's it's descriptive, but I dislike it because, especially when I say it from sort of my position, who comes from sort of a traditional background in games, writing and criticism and journalism, is like, oh well, it's YouTubers. Like, oh, there's someone else. They do the same thing I do. They just do it differently. And
sure.
And I just sometimes it just bothers me, because I feel like if I use that term, I'm saying, oh well, there's something different. It's like, well, no, they're different audiences. It's a different way into the same thing I'm doing, or they're presenting it in a different manner. But it's like we're all doing the same thing. In fact, most of those YouTubers are more popular than me. So
insanely so. I mean, I like it insofar as it portrays how diverse games media has become. I mean, games media is this umbrella now. That doesn't just mean game reviewers or people that put press releases up. It covers investigative reporters. It covers people doing videos on YouTube. It covers entertainment as well as information. And I'm really excited by just how diverse it's gotten, and how people have found their own way. I mean, you look at people doing stuff on YouTube and they've managed to do that. I mean, they're ad supported, but it's so much more impersonal because it's YouTube dealing with all that.
Right.
They never have to deal with an advertiser. People sign up to networks and stuff, but certainly in my experience of working with Maker on some content, they really keep their hands off, to the point where I don't think they give a shit. So look, the views are coming in, and they don't even care if you don't produce videos. because they've got plenty of people who are. So yeah, like YouTube is something I was looking at, and I've slowly been building my YouTube channel for a little over a year now, getting consistently more and more successful with it, and I thought, well, that would be a nice thing to do one day, kind of really be fully independent. And it's great to see that people have done it, and I feel awesome being able to kind of do it myself. I mean, I've always kind of straddled this line between, I guess, more traditional coverage and newer stuff. If there's a new form of games coverage coming out, I want to at least try my hand at it, because I think versatility is one of the best skills you can have in an industry that changes so quickly. So yeah, being able to really do this on my own terms and do a little bit of everything and get the support to do it is just, yeah, it's something I struggle to put into words, because it really is just incredible.
It seems like, my cursory understanding, of YouTube. I have my own channel, but I haven't put a lot of effort into it because I haven't need to, because I already have a job. But it seems like you have to get such an extraordinarily high number of views for that to translate into a system that can support you, and that we have a lot of people that are making videos on YouTube, but videos can have a lot of views, and that doesn't translate to a lot of money. And that while YouTube is an attractive prospect, it seems like a lot of people are jumping into that and then quickly realizing, oh good God, you have to do so much here in order to make anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's another form of risk. It's another. I've been incredibly fortunate in that I've been able to have time to build while I worked another job, and even right now, I put it on my Patreon disclosure. There's ad-supported stuff on my channel, but it lets me buy some stupid alien figures now and then, and it helps with the taxes, but it's nothing. I can't pay the bills with it yet. But as I said, it's been consistently growing, and I've seen the benefits. And the other thing about YouTube is at least, I think at least for right now, I think it's still true now. It may be getting less and less true, but it really still is this: anyone can have a go, and there's a shot. Yes, you have to get a lot of views, but I hear about a new YouTube celebrity every day.
Yeah.
I've never heard of before. Which is to say nothing of the people who have become Vine stars. That makes me feel old. But yeah, like there are so many, and YouTube is such a huge thing that you can have a massive audience that's still a drop in the ocean as far as YouTube's concerned. But there's still that chance. I think as networks and actual big partnered networks and stuff more and more divvy up the spoils, it's going to get tougher, which sadly is the way of the world. It starts off as a Wild West, anyone can have a go, and then bigger boys move in and kind of cut the cake up. But at least for right now, I think there's still this sense that anyone can get up and have a go. It's an open mic night. You might become massive, you might not, and it is low risk, because playing video games and recording yourself and putting it on YouTube, it's a low income risk.
And it's so easy to do these days. I mean, it's just it's the way that YouTube has democratized your ability to share what you have to say, and then the tools in the last couple of years that have democratized the ability to record that. It used to be that part of the reason all the videos for any video game were on GameSpot and IGN was because it cost tens of thousands of dollars to afford the equipment to make those crappy web videos. And yet these days, you can download OBS, spend $500 to $700 on a modest PC, and you can give it a shot. It's reasonable for someone who doesn't have a lot of disposable income to try, and at least to say, hey, I gave it a go, I got that out of my system, at least I tried. I didn't become a star, it's not going to be my new job, but man, at least I could say I did it. And these days, the barriers to entry are really just, do you want to give it a shot?
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately, I think YouTube content is the Super Smash Brothers of games. Anyone can have a go, anyone can have fun doing it, and then if you keep at it, you could, be at Evo, playing it professionally, or if not professionally, just have mastered it and become well known doing it. So, yeah, it's this have a go mentality that I love, and you know, I was among those, I think, because you see some resentment from old media when it comes to YouTube from some people, and I think a lot of that's based on fear and paranoia about these people coming in and they're risking my job, and fears that it's a zero-sum game or whatever. And definitely, you know, once upon a time, IGN Games were masters of gameplay video, and they're not anymore. You know, you want to see a game in action, you don't go to IGN anymore. You want to see a game trailer, you don't go to game trailers.
Right.
And I was among those who looked at it first kind of worried, because I wasn't a video guy. I didn't know how to do video. I mean, many would argue I still don't know how to do video.
I mean, I think we're all in that same boat. You know, I went to school for, you know, print journalism. Like, there was a broadcast department, and there was no online department when I went to school. But I, you know, went to school thinking my entire future was, you know, pen and paper. You know, whether in a print format or digital. And, you know, the last 10 years, everything has gone topsy-turvy, and I decided at one point, you know, when I got laid off from MTV, I went to G4 because I was like, this video thing seems like I should probably try and see if I can be okay in front of a camera. I may prefer writing; it may be my best avenue to express myself. But if I want to keep a job, if I want to stay current with how people are consuming, you know, what's being said and spread around, I need to make sure that I'm okay at doing that. I need to make sure that, you know, if the medium is the message, you need to make sure you're in that medium so your message can be passed on. And even if you start out thinking this is the way my career is going to go, you have to look at the broad landscape. It's like, if I want to do this 10 years from now, I have to be good in front of a camera, or at least competent, or understand how video works and think about it. Because if you run away from it, you're going to be the old curmudgeon that says, oh, that's for other people, and at some point your job's going to go away.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to what I said, versatility. Like don't get married to what you do. I was at risk at that back when, I mean, Destructo had called it before even YouTubers were a thing. You know, we had Nero and Ray Gutierrez at the time were working on video content, saying video's the future, video's the future. I got so sick of the term video is the future. I dug my heels in and said, I'm a writer. I got in this to write. You ain't going to get me in front of a fucking camera. And now video content is predominantly what I do. Barring obviously the New Inquisition site where I do the written reviews, and even then, there's at least one comment on every review right now that's like, start doing video reviews. So it's usually popular, and you just can't get married to what you're currently doing. You can't say I am a writer, that's it, and not worry about your future. You know, it's a constantly evolving medium, and you know, you got to swim with the water, otherwise you won't go anywhere. So, yeah, I always tell people to just be versatile, to get comfortable trying a little bit of everything, and hopefully you'll be all right.
Have you thought about what this looks like 5 years from now, or can you not think 5 minutes in front of where you're at?
I'm terrified to think what's going to happen next week, let alone 5 years. I mean, it's impossible to tell. I mean, we've seen so many things come and go. You know, it's right now. If I told you, if I predicted Facebook wouldn't be here 2 years from now, people would think I'm crazy because Facebook is so big and powerful. Same for Twitter. But then people forget that LiveJournal and MySpace were just as big and powerful back in the day. Were just as this ain't going nowhere. And who talks about MySpace and LiveJournal now? So I mean, you know, 5 years from now, YouTube might not be a thing. It may not. You know.
Are we all going to be on Vine?
Maybe Vine will be it. I hope not. It might be. So it really is. It's impossible to call, because this is a world where something as huge as YouTube could just go. Possibly unlikely looking at it just right now, but you never know.
Yeah, I think it's also what makes it really exciting. I think constantly being terrified about your job, while scary in the moment, when you look back on it, once you sort of tackled it head on, regardless of how well it goes for you or how poor it goes for you, it's part of what makes this industry, you know, whether we're talking about folks like ourselves that talk about it, or folks that make it, or the people in this chat room that are watching it and kind of take in and share the stuff that we do. Like it is never a dull moment. You're scared, you might be frightened as hell half the time, but it's not boring.
Yeah, I mean, this industry in particular is gonna punch you in the face many times.
Yeah.
You just gotta practice rolling. That's all. You just gotta practice rolling, and if you do that, then you should be okay. Just always be prepared to wake up one morning and suddenly the entire world's changed, and you've got to deal with it. You can't just sit there and think, oh, well, these new people have come up and they don't deserve their spot. They do, because they saw where the wind was blowing and they went in that direction. They found an audience. You can say what you want about PewDiePie not deserving the millions of dollars a year he earns. He saw an audience and he grabbed that audience. Fair fucking play to the guy, and that's how you got to do. That's how you've got to be in this industry. Is just be prepared for things to change and get ready to change along with it, and try and be the guy to find the audience nobody's looking for. Be the pasta sauce that brought out extra chunky when no one realized it was, and suddenly realized, oh hey, I love this shit. Be prepared to cater. Look at what the video game industry does, and don't do that. Just playing to the same small niche crowd over and over again. Diversify, be versatile, and you might not get anywhere with it, but at least you tried, and you may stumble on something awesome.
So other than becoming an independent media mogul, you probably still play video games, right?
Sometimes.
I have to.
Yeah.
I have to ask, because I don't have anyone else I can ask this question to, so I feel like I have to put this to you. You played this new Sonic game.
Yes, actually, I've got it on my the 3DS one running.
Oh God! Do you just keep it near you at all times, just to remind you of your own humanity?
Well, yeah. I mean, if I feel like I've written a bad review or produced a bad video that didn't go too well, I can just look at this and be, it's not that, so I'm fine. That's the bar. But yes, I played Sonic Boom: Rise of Lyric on the Wii U, and yeah,
a game that was built on the Crytek engine, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, achieved with CryEngine. The word achieved got funnier and funnier every time I booted the game up, which it really surprises me, because the Hedgehog engine, which is what they've used to power Sonic Generations and Sonic Unleashed, and I think Sonic Lost World, is one of the most gorgeous engines out there. Very underrated. When people talk engines, they talk Unreal, they talk CryEngine, all that kind of stuff. No one talks about the Hedgehog engine, mostly because it's 100% associated with Sonic, and people generally don't talk about Sonic unless there's a new game for everyone to point out and say that's shit. But the Hedgehog engine is something I've praised so much over the years because it is gorgeous. Say what you will about modern Sonic games, they always look fantastic. So to go from Sonic Generations, which is one of the prettiest looking games I've ever played, to Sonic that Sonic Boom, where the cutscenes are poorly compressed, like they were on PCs in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
The glitches, the jagginess, everything's jaggy and fuzzy. It's hideous, and I don't know why they didn't use the Hedgehog engine. Possibly again because it was Big Red Button, I think they call themselves. It wasn't Sonic Team or Dimps working on it, so I guess they used a Western engine or whatever. I don't know how that works, but yeah, bad call, because it is ugly as sin, and that game is a reminder that we're all gonna die one day.
So Sonic Boom just reminds us all of the darkness that awaits all of us. It's just you can feel it a little bit sooner if you play a little bit of Sonic Boom.
Yeah. It's a friendly reminder that oblivion comes for us all. It's inevitable. It's creeping. Uh, Death's cold skeletal hand is around all of our necks, and he's slowly squeezing a little bit each day, and that's what Sonic Boom makes me think. I actually have today's Jimquisition video, which I'm going to pop up after this because that's called Marketing Synergy. Is going to be talking more about the Sonic, not just the Sonic Boom thing, but Sega's continued problem with Sonic, and I think it's an angle not many people have tackled before, but it does talk about these ridiculously radical redesigns that they keep putting Sonic through, and he comes out a little more warped and twisted each time. At one point, in fact, I'm fairly certain somewhere in a lockup in a Sega office somewhere is that room from Alien Resurrection with all the but just Sonic, and someone's going to have to torch the joint.
So, are you a Sonic fan or just a glutton for punishment? What? I mean, obviously it makes good content. I'm not going to sit here and ask you, please stop playing these games, because I'm glad you do it when the rest of us can just not. But like, are you just like a diehard Sonic fan that just refuses to give up and move on? Like, why?
I wouldn't call myself diehard. I'm not on the sort of real hardcore Sonic fan sort of thing.
Okay.
But I'm a British gamer who grew up in the 90s, and there seems to be a cultural affiliation there. A lot of people who grew up playing games in the 90s in Britain seem to fall, in my experience, anecdotally, fall on the Genesis side of things rather than the NES, SNES side of things. So Sonic is he kind of has there's a lot of fondness for Sonic in the UK, as far as I can see. A lot of British writers and stuff I've known over the years have been fans of Sonic in some way, shape, or form. And I'm also someone who I don't feel all of the Sonic games have been universally bad over the years. It's become such a popular thing to say that every Sonic game is bad that people forget it's had real high points. I mean, I'm not a fan of Sonic Colors, but a lot of fans thought that was a really good game.
That was the Wii one, right?
That was the Wii one, yeah.
Yeah, I remember hearing. I got dangerously close to being mildly interested because enough people were like, "Hey, this one's all right," but I feel like I've heard that so many times that I just have to slowly walk away from those people because I just don't trust them. Like you've been infected. Like whatever you think is a good Sonic game, you've been in the box too long.
Yeah. But a lot of the fans actually hated me because I liked Sonic 4, at least Episode 1. I didn't like Episode 2. But I thought Sonic 4 was a really well put together game. Had problems. They all have problems. But some of them, like Sonic Generations, I thought was legitimately a great game. Like not just one of this, it's not as bad as the others, but it was the first time I felt they truly nailed that, behind Sonic on rail-ish type thing.
Yeah, that's sort of like hybrid 2D, 3D take on Sonic.
Like that was the first time I felt they absolutely 100% nailed it. It was a great game. Sonic Lost World was good. It, again, problematic, and I don't want to give too much away on the Jimquisition, but I feel that every time they try and shake things up too radically and kind of let their ambition escape their talent. But the whole Mario Galaxy married to Sonic stuff had potential, and I just wish I wrote in my review on Destructor, like please stick with this. Like if you do this a few more times, you'll have it. But they never stick, and so now we have Sonic Boom, where they again have just completely radicalized everything. So yeah, it's I've had enough experience of good modern Sonic games to not feel like it's a write-off. I feel that there are people there that know what they're doing when they're making Sonic games, but they might not just have the kind of oversight that people who know less about what they're doing have. So yeah, I think there have been Sonic games ranging from good to great over the years, which is why I stick with it, because yeah, I've played series that are more consistently terrible than that.
It's always just struck me as a character that not only does Sega not quite understand, yeah, well, it seems like with some of the games they understand what the appeal is, and then also the inherent challenge of translating. Like Sonic just translates much more difficultly to 3D than Mario has, because it's a character based on speed, and speed is not necessarily what works great in a 3D space. Like most characters in a 3D space are slow and plodding, and you can kind of plan out your actions, whereas Sonic is meant to go very fast, and that makes sense from left to right, and doesn't make as much sense with 360 degrees of control. It's frustrating for the player, but they also seem to run into this issue where every time they announce a new Sonic game, like you said, they reinvent the formula in a way that goes, wait. Like you had some tendrils, some ideas that maybe could have gone somewhere, and instead of saying let's take a couple of those and see where they lead, they just throw out the baby with the bathwater and decide to start all over again. And of course, that's going to come with its own problems because you're starting from scratch every 18 months.
Yeah, and I don't know why they don't kind of. To me, it seems fairly obvious what they should have been doing, because Sonic levels in modern Sonic games are set out like racetracks. Make him control like a fucking car. Hold down a button to accelerate, have your left and right, and give him tracks with obstacles and shit. Add in the jumping and all that stuff. But, instead they try and make him control like Mario in Mario 64 or what have you, and give him this sort of platformer character control scheme, which always makes him feel awkward because he moves like a car but controls like Mario. So it's weird. Like he always feels weird, like too twitchy, too forklift trucky at times. He doesn't turn like he should. He just doesn't feel right. And I don't know why. In fact, this is another perfectly fine point about what they do. There's an idea in Sonic Boom. Most of it's this kind of open world. I mean, it has not open world, this world where you can move about freely and everything, and it's very slow paced. And then every now and then there'll be this tiny little running section, which is almost more like a racing thing than a platforming thing. You just press up on the stick and he goes forward, and then you press the shoulder buttons to make him zip left and right, almost like a mobile runner game, but a little more involved. And it almost works. Except for the fact that they keep interrupting it every 5 seconds for a cutscene, so that Knuckles can be hilariously stupid, and Sonic can make some terrible joke, or they can point at some ramps, and Sonic can go, "Hey, look, ramps!" And then Tails can go, "Oh, we can use those as ramps!" But yeah, so again, they almost have that idea, and just don't ever build on anything. But yeah, so I guess I've been given just enough hope to remain horrifically optimistic and naive when it comes to Sonic stuff. Plus, the games always look gorgeous when they're using the Hedgehog engine and they're not Sonic Boom, Rise of the Lyric.
It seems like if they took the bonus stages from some of the earlier like Genesis Sonic games, like kind of like what you're saying, where you sort of strip out, Sonic being like a fully controllable character, and you're mostly you restrict the movement, and then have the obstacles appear around that, so that you take away that element for the player to be fully in control. That seems to be kind of the problem with all those games. Like if they can restrict his movement, then you can build stuff around him in the way they did. Like they're not going to be able to make a 2D Sonic game, so they somehow have to find a way to make a 3D game that limits his movement, so you can give the illusion of 3D, even if what the player is actually engaging with is on a much narrower focus.
Yeah, I mean that's one of Sega's big problems is over-complication. You look at how successful Nintendo is. They normally keep their ideas very restricted. Mario might be able to turn into a ghost in this new one, but you're still jumping on the heads of turtles. Like you know what you're getting, and it's refined and elegant in that way. Whereas, I mean, even the 3DS one I'm playing right now, it's a 2D platformer, and it works pretty well. I mean, it's nowhere near as bad as the Wii U one. But again, they still have to throw in needless complications. It's adding touch controls, like actual stylus-y touch controls into it, like it's 2006. And giving him weird dash moves and all this stuff, and throwing in new characters and a brand new friend called Styx the Raccoon or whatever the hell she's called. just this overcomplication all the time. The best levels in the 3DS one are there are these running sections in this one that are basically a mobile runner. It's basically Temple Run with Sonic. He runs along a platform automatically. You use the shoulder buttons to go left and right and avoid obstacles and jump, and that's it. And they're the best levels in the thing. I mean, they're not glamorously overcomplicated, but simple. There's a reason why Tetris is still instantly playable by millions of people around the world, because it's simple and it works. Same principle of games like Ridiculous Fishing and Super Hexagon that have come out and people have loved. Complicated stuff doesn't necessarily mean it's deep or clever or good. Sometimes it's just a Rube Goldberg machine mess, and that's something Sega's yet to learn.
Well, I think that's that explains sort of the universal rolling of the eyes whenever a new Sonic game is announced and then it's revealed. Like, there's a new Sonic game gets announced and then you close your eyes until they reveal that there's also Sonic friends coming along for the ride, and then that's where you sigh, because I feel like that every single time almost indicates that they've completely missed the point.
Yeah,
which is,
I think it's telling that when they announced Sonic Generations, my first thought wasn't because they showed the original trailer, modern Sonic running through the grass, doing what he does, and then classic Sonic jumps in, and it's telling that as I watched that trailer, my first thought wasn't, "Oh, awesome, that's the Sonic from the 90s." It was, "Oh my fucking god, they've given him a son." Like, it's just such a Sega move. It's going to be Sonic and Son.
Well, he made out with like a chick at some point, right? Like a human. That happened. I feel like that happened in the Sonic game.
Yeah, that'll bring us back to the Alien Resurrection room.
You can talk about Sonic for a long time. There's a lot to talk about with Sonic.
Yeah. Too much, unfortunately. I wish it could just be, there's Sonic, he runs fast, he jumps on a robot. Like, that's all it needs. I can tell you everything you need to know about Mario in a sentence, and I mean that as a compliment. Understand what it fucking is.
Yeah, people don't know that you're actually on Patreon just so that you can, exclusively go full in on talking and writing about Sonic for the next 5 years.
Funnily enough, I mean, if I end up reviewing that 3DS one, I will have talked about Sonic more than anything else so far, because I've got a video coming today. I got the review I did last week. It makes a change from constantly talking about Ubisoft. So, all day.
Yeah, we'll sort of maybe close out with this a little bit of discussion, but that is certainly, whenever I click over to your page or scroll through your Twitter feed to see kind of what you're talking about. You talk a lot about Ubisoft.
I do. I go through phases.
It's it's a relationship.
Yeah, a couple of years ago it was Activision. Every news report I wrote on Destructoid, I'd call them evil publisher Activision. Like, that was their official company name. And I draw devil horns and snake tongues coming out of Bobby Kotick's head and stuff. And then it went over to Electronic Arts, and now it's Ubisoft, because they just, those three especially, just seem to take it in turns. Just who's next up for the rotation of being, the prime dick of the industry.
Or they're just happy that someone else decided to be more of a dick, which just sort of like rotates the cube in their direction.
They hit a fallow period, yeah. So yeah, Ubisoft has been it for a while now, to the point where the TV tropes page for the Jimquisition has an arch nemesis section, arch enemy entry, and it's just Ubisoft. So yeah, I don't know if they're going to keep sending me review copies now that I'm not part of a big outlet. We'll find out.
yeah. I guess I didn't. That's interesting. That's one of those new wrinkles that you'll have with the new thing is whether, I think that stuff matters less these days, right? Like, access to stuff is.
I can buy the stuff if I need to.
Right.
It's handy, having it up at the same time as everyone else on embargo and stuff. But at the same time, it's not like I'm worrying about page views or anything anymore. Well, my concern with page views begins and ends with, I want more people to read my stuff.
Sure.
I like getting my message out there. And getting stuff up on embargo when everyone's talking about it helps get that message out there. So it's something that's preferable, not necessary. because as someone from Sega once told me, like, why the hell would we blacklist you? You just go and buy it and shit on our games that way. So we may as well send them. And I've had a few places be supportive of the move. Notably, already very indie-friendly companies anyway. Devolver Digital have been really supportive. Deep Silver, Telltale Games. Rockstar actually were really supportive with it. That amused me because I
independent developers like Rockstar.
Yeah, well, they were one of the more notable ones. Someone from Activision congratulated me, and they still send me press releases. So, but the Rockstar one was funny because I told them, because they were talking about GTA 5, PS4, and Xbox One and everything before I'd made any announcements. I was still in discussions with the Escapist and everything, and I let them know what was up because I'm like, I don't want you to give me a review copy that you intend for the Escapist and then feel let down because it's not there. So I let them know what was up, and they said that was fine. They seemed excited by the move and everything. And then I told them, like, this isn't public knowledge, so I got to place Rockstar under an embargo, which was a fun turning of the tables. And they said they'd quite happily sign an NDA there.
You should just hang it up. You've done it, Jim. You're done. Sorry, you peaked.
I think I've unlocked the secret goal, I think, of every games writer.
Ah, that's fantastic. That's really good. Bravo.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, I've appreciated having you on the show.
It's been a laugh.
So if you want to support what you're doing, it's patreon.com/Jimquisition. Correct, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't know, plug all your other stuff. Where else can people check your stuff out?
My video content is all housed on my YouTube channel, which is Jim Sterling, just youtube.com/Jim Sterling. For written reviews and hopefully more, I'm looking into providing other forms of content. There's also going to be a weekly podcast that's going to be hosted there soon. Is viewable at thejimquisition.com. I cannot stress how important it is that it's thejimquisition.com. Don't put jimquisition.com in, because I found out what happens when you do that. And I will say that hentai is probably a better use for it than I'd have for it.
Oh, God.
But just be careful and use the at all times. And that's really it now. The time was I'd have a ton of stuff, but there's that. There's Fistshark, fistshark.com, which is a comedy podcast I run with Caitlin Cook and Conrad Zimmerman as well. And yeah, I normally plug everything on Twitter as well, which is at Jim Sterling.
Awesome. Well, Jim, as always, it's a pleasure having you on here. We'll have to do that again real soon. For everyone else, we will not have a Friday show because it's Thanksgiving is later this week, so a lot of people are off, including myself. Alex is also already in the Bay Area. He's hanging out with family, and then we are all going to convene next week in San Francisco. All of us are coming out. Either Alex is already there, I go out on Sunday, and I think Vinny is coming in on Monday. So we're all going to get together to start recording Game of the Year stuff, which is terrifying that I only have one more week to try and play as many games as I can before I have to just start committing to what happened this year. So it'll be a little bit slower week, but we'll have some stuff going on in the next couple of days. So look forward to that. And then in terms of the morning show for the other times that I'm still in San Francisco, that is kind of to be determined. Alex and I have talked about some things. Maybe Vinny and I will go into the office early and try and do something in the morning. I'm not going to commit to the Central and Eastern times that we've set up for that, but the idea of us doing something in the morning in place is not out of the question. I just haven't quite figured out what exactly that's going to be yet. So stay tuned to that. If you have any ideas, make sure and let me know, and I'll keep those in mind. But otherwise, I will see everyone another time. That is to be determined. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.